On this week's Movie HighLow, we're talking Neptune's Folly, Overgrown Goldfish, and Making Love to an Angry Welder. This time, it's personal. This is Joseph Sargent's Jaws the Revenge. It's been a minute since we did this, huh?
Yeah.
It's been like 2 weeks.
You are rolling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just, it's been like 2 weeks.
Well, coronavirus has been kind of a bitch. So
since the world went to shit and it turned into a complete nightmare up
Let's
there.
act like coronavirus is the reason we haven't done this in a couple weeks. That sounds like a good excuse.
I mean, it's a perfect excuse.
Or maybe it's an excuse for why we should have done it. Like, you're home.
Well, that's what I mean. I think the people need us. I think at the end of the day, we realize that, like maybe talking about movies isn't the most important thing in the world, but maybe talking about movies is the most important thing in the world right now.
Maybe
while we're all sitting around at home.
Right.
Looking for something to watch, looking for something to make fun of, or looking for something really great.
Like our podcast isn't necessarily Mr. Right, but it's Mr. Right Now.
Oh, I like that. That's
You've heard of that before, the Mr.
that?
Right and Mr. Right Now.
That's
I'm not looking for. I think it's from Sex and the City. I don't know.
I think there's also a song that's like she's not Miss Right, she might be right now. Becca 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 bow now now now. Welcome to another episode of Movie HighLow, a podcast discussing the best and worst that cinema has to offer.
I'm Dee.
And this is Dom. And you know what I would like to really be able to socially distance myself from? This fucking movie right here. Jaws the Revenge. The movie this week.
Are you going to have a little that you put in there?
No, God, no. No rim shot. Jaws the Revenge, directed by Joseph Sargent, released on July 17th, 1987. It is a low episode. Says Who, the folks at IMDb have given it a 3.0, which puts it in the bottom 100 at number 28. It's got a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was nominated for 7 Razzies, won.
Rotten to the core, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty shit. It's pretty shit across the board. I mean, the thing about Jaws in general is that I think that, obviously at some point we should probably even do a podcast on the original Jaws because it's such a great,
of course, it
timeless
seems
classic.
Like we should have done that before doing Jaws 4.
Maybe, but this one is in a weird way, not that it's better known, but it's what Jaws became almost is I want to say more prevalent in the minds of people as, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I guess what Jaws,
rather than the movie that started it all.
The original
it's
Jaws.
a little of both, but yeah.
But people know what it turned
because,
into.
I mean, I knew of the original Jaws. I didn't know much about the sequels before I met you.
Oh, God. I remember.
And my parents saw that movie in theaters, and my mom always jokes that my dad was hiding under the seat, but I don't think it's 100% true.
People were. But that when you went and saw it, like.
I don't know, my dad was always the pussy in the equation.
Well, there you go. And I'm making sure that stays in. It's so funny because I remember being a kid and I remember seeing Jaws at a very, very young age. I can't really remember the chronology or the order in which I saw Jaws. I'm sure I saw the original one first, but all the other ones kind of like blended into each other for some reason. It was one of those things where I don't know that when I saw the other Jaws movies as a kid, I knew which one was 2 or 3 or 4. But I remember what I specifically remember was my mom telling me, okay, so this one is the daddy shark, and then in this movie it's the mommy shark, and in this movie it's the baby shark, and it was. I really think that concept was a whole family, and I think it came from
Jaws the second. Jaws.
I think it came from this movie. I think it came from the whole stupid fucking concept that the shark has a vendetta against the family, so that the idea is that it was a shark family.
It's not even like a passing of a crown or a title to your heirs. It's like what you're passing down a war. You're not passing down the title or whatever, but your progeny are inheriting your war, your battles,
Yeah, I mean,
in this case, it's the war against Brody and his family. The Brodies, yeah.
They fucking hate the sharks. Hate them. The sharks hate that family.
So it's like that's the thing to take away from it is that all the family members carry on this vendetta for the predeceased relatives.
Or are they family members, or is it just that like there's like a shark council and like there's like a town hall every night and the sharks get together and like, do you hear what these fucking Brodies did to one of us the other? Like, and it turns into a whole thing. Like, I have no idea, and the movie doesn't make it any clearer. So, real quick, let me do a quick synopsis for anyone who has not seen the film. Ellen Brody, Chief Brody's surviving widow, remains an Amity resident with her son Sean, now acting as the island's deputy. One winter evening, when Sean is summoned to clear ocean debris from the channel marker, he is fatally attacked by yet again another great white shark. in the wake of Sean's demise, Ellen decides to travel to the Bahamas with her eldest son, Michael, and his wife and daughter. But her greatest fears are soon realized as she comes to learn that the shark has followed her and seeks to... Don't laugh.
I'm sorry.
But this is the plot of the movie. But her greatest fears are soon realized as she comes to learn that the shark has followed her and seeks to eliminate the remaining members of the Brody brood. Will Ellen be able to save her family, or will Jaws have his revenge?
The Brody Broody.
The Brody Broody. The Broody Broads. The Brody Brood.
Djibouti.
The booty.
I said Djibouti.
So Jaws, they made the sequel to Jaws. They made Jaws 2. It's basically like a really poor retreading of Jaws 1. It's really one of the... It was kind of like the way that Jaws was the first blockbuster. Like Jaws 2 was kind of like the first sequel that was like, oh, okay, what a sequel ends up being is like kind of a shallower, shittier retread of the original movie.
It set the precedent.
It really did. It really fucking did. It was like, oh, it's the same exact thing, only shittier. Okay. So that
only
was
shittier.
So that was Jaws 2. Now, when they were going to go make Jaws 3, this is a legitimate conversation that was had with the producers. When they were actually going to go make Jaws 3, there was a thought to call it Jaws 3 Human Zero. And it was going to be like a Naked Gun style spoof of...
slapstick.
Like it was going to be like, we're making fun of the fact that we're making a third Jaws movie. And of course they didn't do that. They ended up making Jaws 3D. I grew up on
slapstick movies, so I would have loved that.
I mean, it probably...
Airplane and Blazing Saddles. And
the impulse wasn't wrong. The impulse to make fun of it was actually a really good impulse because it was clearly at that point like, wow, are we really trying to make Jaws 3? Mm-hmm. Of course, they turned it into Jaws 3D, which was some 3D gimmick bullshit that was shot in SeaWorld. It was the SeaWorld Jaws. By the time we get to Jaws 4, The Revenge, I really don't think anybody's taking this seriously anymore. Like they're presenting it as a horror movie or presenting it as a serious entry in the franchise, but they're literally just like squeezing the last bit of milk out of the tit at this point. Like that's really all they're trying to do here. They bring back the what's her fucking name? Forgive me. Ellen, but yeah, Brody's wife was
Ellen.
They bring back Lorraine Gary so that they can have an original cast member in the movie. And that's really about as far as they went in terms of being like, hey, we have to bring people into the motherfucking theater to see this piece of shit. The only way to start with this absolute piece of shit movie is to talk about the first low, which for me is the entire shark vendetta concept.
So we're going to start with the lows.
We got to start with it's a low episode. Let's start with the lows. I think the whole shark.
It's sad to have more highs than lows.
I know you do. I know you. When we sat down and watched this movie, I know we actually.
I mean,
for listeners,
things that
we
make
watched
it
this
charming,
and
not things that make it a great movie, but things that make it charming. Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing we watch Battlefield Earth or Wicker Man or anything else that's campy or dated or kind of silly. I can find what's positive, but it's usually because of the campiness, the corniness,
right.
Whatever. So it's more like that it's charming to me. It's not because this is a brilliant cinematic masterpiece. No, far from it. But things that I'm endeared to because, I mean, I also grew up watching shitty horror movies that are campy and corny. And like, I can appreciate what makes something shitty, but in like a dated way.
Of course.
I mean, so that's what my highs are.
Oh, yeah. Listen.
Most of my highs are.
I've seen this movie a ton. Like this is not the first time I've watched this film.
We're looking at it right here. It's like actually like the fourth one, but when they introduce the Jamaican friend, he's like, "What do you stop farting around?" You know, the way it segues into that scene, you can just hear him over the speaker saying, "Would you stop farting around?" I'm sound Scottish.
Mario, you're Mario fan. People.
Would you stop farting around, man? You know, like whatever.
This is our lives.
It sounds Scottish. Never tried to sound Scottish.
I love you.
Sound Jamaican.
Always have.
Anyway, but it's funny, and it's not because it's great or makes the movie great.
It's just
it's funny, so I put that as a high. I mean, that's just one of a few examples that I wrote down.
Right.
It's usually something that just adds to the charm of it.
But
because of how cheesy it is.
But what I'm saying is that like what separates this? All right, so it's a part of the Jaws franchise, right? And again, like I don't want to belabor the point that Jaws is a classic. It is a amazing, seminal movie in film history. It's one of the great films. And it's, you know, by the time we get to Jaws 4, it's like the perfect example of the de-evolution of what the fuck happens with movies when all you try to do is franchise them and make them fucking dumber and sillier. Now, I'm not saying you can't watch this and enjoy it. It's totally enjoyable on the level of this movie sucks. If anything, it's only irritating by the fact that it's riding on the heels of a much more superior film.
Right, it cheapens it in some way.
But I agree with you that, like, yeah, I've seen this movie a ton. I've seen this movie so many fucking times. Like, even as a kid, I remember watching this movie a whole bunch.
But did you think it was shitty back then?
I did. But that's what I'm saying is that, like, I knew it wasn't as good as the first one. Even as a kid, I knew it wasn't as. But I remember thinking it was almost like it was fun to watch because, I guess I probably as a kid never thought too much or scrutinized too much about the plot of it. I think it just made sense to me that it was like, oh no, it's another one of Jaws' relatives. Like Jaws, the word Jaws became like the name for the shark. It's not the name of the shark, but it almost like as time went on, the name Jaws became the name of the shark. So it almost felt like, oh, this is Jaws' cousin. This is Jaws' little brother. This is Jaws' whatever the fuck he is, and he's mad at the Brodies. As a kid, that almost made more sense than as you become an adult and you're like, wow, that's fucking dumb. That's like, did adults really write this and expect anyone to take it seriously? And maybe it was just made for a dumb, 11-year-old kid. I don't know. But opening scene, the movie opens up. We're on Amity Island. Ellen Brody's there. She's got her son, Sean Brody, who is now kind of like the deputy of the town. So he's kind of like walking in his father's footsteps. There's this terrible fucking line. I wrote this down as another low, was the horrific dialogue where like, they're making a phone call to the other brother, or they're talking to the granddaughter, and he's like picking shit out of the salad, and she's like, "Your father was the tomato thief of all time." It's like, it's so cheesy. That's so fucking.
Okay, can I talk about that?
Please.
So, the first lows I had were from that scene at the beginning of the movie. So, things that are predictable are like, "Wow, I didn't see that coming." So the line where, yes, that line's cheesy. It's really stupid because most people, when they're picking at things when you're cooking, it's not the healthy thing. I mean, you can
tomatoes.
You can pick at carrots and
he'd be eating the croutons. He'd be biting the croutons.
But like, it's just like, like picking the healthy thing. Like it's like you want to make breakfast, you're picking at the bacon. You're not finding the health. Like, do you know what I mean? So I thought that was stupid. But the first thing I wrote down was the whole thing where it's like he's helping make the salad. He's chopping up something. He's chopping some vegetables for the salad, and she's cooking on the stove. And she goes, "Watch your fingers." And as soon as she says, "Watch your fingers," of course he like nicks his finger, and it's like, like watch your fingers. I see. I knew you were gonna cut yourself. It's like, of course that happened. I have a few, of course, moments for the first lows that I have, and then the next thing is when they're talking on the phone with the granddaughter. It's like, you immediately know something bad's going to happen, or something at some point bad is going to happen to the granddaughter character when you hear her say, "I'm taking swimming classes. Yeah, she's like a fish. I wonder if Jaws 4 is going to have something to do with this granddaughter that loves the water and is like a fish, and she loves to swim. She's taking swimming classes." It's like, of course. And then, not long after is the scene where she's playing by the water. It's after Ellen Brody's son dies, the son from that scene. When he's eaten by the shark, when he's going to check out, the buoys at night or whatever.
Yes.
And then she's like, "I don't want anyone else in my family going near the water. Nobody." And it's like, not only like within the next 5 minutes is she going down to the Bahamas anyway. I'm like, wow, she sure has a strong will. I'm not, nobody else in my family, and then you're all going down to the Bahamas. It's like, okay, well, didn't you just say in like a few scenes, like a few minutes before, that nobody else in my family is going to be near the water, and then you just cave and I'll go to the Bahamas?
Go to the most watery fucking place in the world.
And then the granddaughter, sure enough, is like on a tire swing by the dock, whatever, and she's about to go in the water, and
which is a rip from the original.
Yes, that too. But it's also like, of course this is happening, and of course she's gonna freak out and be like, "Oh, you're too close." Like, you just see all that shit coming. You know what they're trying to do when they set it up. You know exactly what they're trying to do. You know how it's gonna pay off, or it's supposed to pay off. I'm like, you're not reinventing the wheel, people. Like,
no,
you know what I mean? Not. But it's like it's like. It makes it enjoyable and charming because it's so shitty. If you're thinking anyone's going to take this seriously, you got nothing.
Well, that's what I mean. So the whole setup for the movie is the first 10 minutes of the movie. You understand that like it's Ellen Brody, the surviving widow of Chief Brody. Her son still works on the island. He's following in the father's footsteps, and it's supposed to be the winter. And there's this whole thing where it's like, I don't know if it's Christmas Eve or whatever it is. It's like it's supposed to be right around Christmas. Someone calls and they're basically saying like, "Hey, there's all this shit caked up on this channel marker on this buoy," and he has to get into a boat and go out and pull all the shit off. And then he gets attacked by this fucking shark. Okay, so in my head I'm like, is this intentional? Is what they're trying to posit that the shark has like caked up all this shit on this buoy, and it's like, all right, Sean's coming out here.
He's laid
Here
on a
he
trap.
comes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the shark is laying a fucking
Luring
trap
him.
and waiting for, as if he doesn't even, and they even say at one point, like, why don't you get the Coast Guard? And it's like, he's off duty or blah, blah, blah. It's like the shark doesn't know that Sean Brody's
He checked the
coming
schedule.
out. He checked the schedule, right? He called up, he made a prank phone call. It was like, Sean Brody on
That's a
fucking-"
Family Guy skit right there, right?
It's so fucking stupid. And then
He's got the glasses on and the cell phone.
and this is another thing I thought was so fucked up about that. He gets attacked by the shark, and it's like he gets his arm bitten off, and they keep cutting back to these Christmas carolers because he's out there on the water and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, and they're cutting back.
Herald angels sing.
They keep cutting back to these carolers, which is supposed to, for the audience, say they can't hear his screams over the Christmas carolers, right? That's why he's screaming at the top of his lungs and no one's coming out to help him because I literally wrote down, I counted 7 cutbacks where they cut from him screaming, cutting back to the carolers.
No one can hear him?
And it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, by the 3rd cutback, I'm like, we get it. They can't hear him, or there's dramatic irony to like the pretty Christmas music versus his horrific screams. Like by the 7th cutaway, I'm like, are you guys, did you guys need to like fill the amount of screen time? Was it literally like, this scene has to be 1.5 minutes long for it to be effective. Let's keep cutting back to this bullshit. It was just so fucking stupid. But anyway, so I'm like, all right, so the shark has laid a trap for Sean Brody and has effectively taken out one more of the Brody clan. Ha ha ha. And again, I know we already talked about this. It was one of the questions I wrote down as I was watching it. Like, what shark is this? Is it a distant cousin of the original film? Are all the sharks related? Is it just like a brotherhood thing where it's just like
the Freemasons?
The sharks against Brodies, like
the Freemasons.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, are they congregating in the deep ocean and trying to figure out a way?
Are there Freemasons lodges under the ocean?
And then it also makes less and less sense to me to think like, I mean, go inland, right? Like you live on an island. Like you know what the best place to not get attacked by a fucking shark is? Yeah, the woods or a fucking 5th floor walk up in New York City. Like they can't get you there. Right. You know what I mean?
Why would you still live on the water? Right?
What the fuck are you doing on the water if you're so fucking scared? And why is your fucking son a marine biologist if he's afraid? So anyways,
maybe because he was always morbidly. You know what? I can make that argument. What about Steve Irwin and how his daughter went on to basically try to follow in his footsteps? I mean, when that happens, I can see how that becomes a calling for the younger generations in some ways.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Her father was killed by a stingray doing what he did, and she ended up, I think to this day, I don't know exactly what she does, but I know she grew up and like basically is doing the same thing. I
don't think Steve Irwin's widow is being like, the stingrays are out to get us, little Biddy, or whatever her name is.
No, but at the same time, is it Bindi? Yeah,
Bindi, whatever her name is. I called her Biddy.
Here, do you want the Biddy? Does Bono want the Biddy?
It didn't deter her from the ocean, or if anything, it drew her more to it.
I guess so. I guess that's fair enough. I think that's given this movie way more credit than any of the screenwriters thought.
If something or the occupation of your parent that was truly genuinely fascinating, but became the demise of your parent, it wouldn't be enough of a reason maybe to deter the child. If anything, it might be something that becomes a source of obsession with that child. Yeah. I need to find out more about it to get answers. I need answers, right? Maybe it'll give answers to what happened to their parent in some way.
But wait a second. Okay. That's a perfectly good explanation, but they go to great lengths when they're talking about Michael. When they finally get to the Bahamas and they're talking about Michael, they go to great lengths to him being like, I don't even deal with sharks.
Right, we do with coral.
I deal with snails. Like,
coral.
I don't even fucking see sharks. Yeah, so it's like, so obviously that's not the impetus or the motivation for the characters to be like, sharks killed, sharks, and the shark didn't even kill his dad. This is my other favorite. I wrote down horrific dialogue.
I was thinking more about the son that got killed.
Right. But what I'm saying, but Michael is the one that became a marine biologist.
Right, but okay.
But what I'm saying
the other son is the one that became a cop, like his dad,
which makes sense.
And is going out to the water at all hours of the night to report to things that, he's still working in that community, basically doing what his father did, is following in his footsteps.
Right. I understand this. I understand Sean wanting to become a police force member in the town that his father policed, but Michael becoming a marine biologist is like, what you're saying is the thing is like, well, he's drawn to the ocean because of the shark attack or what happened to his father. Fine. But they go to all these lengths to make the point that he's literally just looking at fucking snails. He's not even interested in sharks. It's not even what he's actually, if he was interested in sharks, it would maybe make more sense.
Mollusks and crustaceans.
There you go. And then I wrote down the horrific dialogue. So then when everyone's trying to console her, this is one of the most embarrassing lines of this entire fucking movie. I mean, this is like, you're going from
may your sex life be as busy as your shirt. That line?
No, well, no. That's funny. That's actually a pretty good line. So you're going from the original Jaws. It has this great dialogue, like when Quint is doing the entire monologue on the, that sharks, doll's eyes. He's doing that whole monologue of
2,000 men went to the sea that night.
150. I'll never wear a life jacket again. He's got this great fucking monologue. You're going from some of that great shit to something like this, which is one of the most embarrassing lines of the movie, when she's saying everyone in the family's been killed by sharks, and then the son Michael goes, "Dad died of a heart attack," and she's like, "Your father died of fear."
I know.
Fear.
Or what about equally shitty, the line where she's like, "It waited all this time."
Oh God,
and it came for him.
It's so fucking bad. It's so and like not even bad, like embarrassing.
Like you expect to see the shark like rubbing his fins, like,
yeah,
yes,
like,
excellent.
yeah, there they are, Brody.
Excellent.
I got to bring it up, but we got to talk about it more as we get to it. The shark. This is another one of the lows I wrote. The shark has never looked worse than in this movie. I mean, here we are. We're like almost 13 years out from the original movie. Okay,
And the special effects.
and they haven't fucking improved the thing. I mean, Spielberg.
I didn't think it looked that bad.
It
but
looked fucking terrible.
It didn't look as bad as CGI. It didn't look
I
real,
agree,
but it didn't
but
look like CGI.
It
looked like a model.
when it's chomping
At
on
best.
the. Oh God! All right, so hold on. So now in the movie, so now where we're going from here is that Ellen Brody, the family, Michael and his wife, and his daughter and his Ellen Brody's granddaughter, they all come out to Amity Island to go to the funeral where they have these awful sepia tone fucking flashbacks from the original movie. I mean, they're literally trying to put Brody in the movie as much as possible because they couldn't get Roy Scheider in the movie, so they're literally cutting back to old footage of him to try and make people think like, don't you love that first
but at
one?
the same time, it's like he's supposed to. Well, is he supposed to be dead? He's supposed to be dead.
He's dead. But the
right,
point
so
is they're
that's part
cutting
of the
back.
reason that he couldn't
It's
be.
so fucking stupid.
Why
though.
else? How could he be in the movie? He's supposed
Honey,
to be dead.
he's
at this
dead
point.
because he wouldn't agree to be in the movie. He's not dead because he died in any of these movies. He's dead because he wouldn't come back. So they're like dead in the script. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They couldn't. He was like, no, I was embarrassed enough to be in 2. I don't need to be in 4.
Because he didn't technically die in the first one.
No, he didn't die in the second one either. He's
Right. Quint did though.
well, Quint gets it the worst. But so now she is agreeing to go back with her son and her daughter-in-law and her granddaughter to the Bahamas, where they're like, you got to get off this island. We're going to come back with us and stay with us, which again, the water is pretty fucking prevalent in the Bahamas, but fine. So she's going to go and hang out with her family to grieve. God bless Lorraine Gray. There's this one scene in the movie where they're all on the ferry leaving the island and she's playing with her granddaughter, and then she like puts her down and like walks away like so that no one can see, and is like having this like cry fit. She's like trying to give some pathos to the character. She knows there's nothing in this fucking script or nothing in this story, so she's trying to give it something. God bless her. She's doing her best with nothing to work with. But they get on this plane,
Right.
and
Michael Caine makes it all better.
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine makes
And this
it all
is
better.
I'm
That was
gonna
one of the highs where I put
the
Michael
only-
Caine is awesome.
no, I put on one of the only highs. I have 3 highs, and they're all pretty.
Michael Caine
they're all pretty
ones.
big. I wrote Michael Caine playing a character named Hoagie.
Right.
Perfect.
Well, it's good. Hoagie's thing.
The guy's fucking named Hoagie.
I like the line where he's
Joey Submarine.
He's basically
Perfect.
trying to get into Ellen's good graces or whatever, and he's like flirting
He's trying to
with
get
her,
into more than
whatever.
that.
I know. I'm right.
Yeah.
The
Hey,
fucking
yo.
granny panties.
Listen,
And
listen, I love Brody.
and he's saying he's gonna
I am Brody.
he's gonna
Oh,
do
love
something.
you.
I know because he's such a catch. But he's gonna do something crazy with the plane or whatever, and she's like, "Do you really think you can do that?" He was like, "Of course not. What kind of pilot do you think I am?" And it's like, ha 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 ha.
He's like, Alan Brody, you are the Batman.
I promise, Mama, I'll protect you. And
Listen, Alan Brody.
Michael
He's
Caine.
like, this plane is almost the size of a ruby, the size of a tangerine.
I know, right?
So
Or just quote Prestige.
anything.
What's your favorite line of his from Prestige?
Oh, the Prestige. Well, I mean,
What's your favorite line of Michael Caine's from the Prestige?
And the Prestige. Well, he does the whole setup of the. He does the whole.
We're gonna do that movie on here too.
Oh God, we're totally gonna do the Prestige on some point. The Prestige is one of my all-time favorite movies ever. It's fucking awesome. Well, the greatest thing is he does the setup in the Prestige where he's saying he's trying to comfort Angier, and he's trying to explain to him that like, You know, I knew a sailor.
Said it was like going home.
Yeah, he said, you know, I knew a sailor. He was trapped underwater for 5 minutes, and he said it was like going home. And then after you get the realization
it's like
of everything,
agony.
when he says to him at the end, when you realize what Andrea is doing, he goes, "Take a minute to understand your accomplishments. I once told you about a sailor who almost drowned." And he's like, "Yes, you said it was like going home." I lied. He said it was agony. Mm-hmm. That's fucking great.
And he does that every night.
Oh, God.
Under the stage.
Oh, God, that fucking movie's so fucking awesome. Why don't we just make this whole podcast about that movie? That movie's so much fucking better. Right? So anyways, they get to the Bahamas. I think that another one of the things that I wrote was, I think is just fucking bananas, is that now they're in the Bahamas. And Ellen Brody has somehow developed a spidey sense of the shark.
I know.
There are all these scenes.
She's got the Shining.
Oh my God, she's shining with this fucking shark.
There's a scene I'm like, oh, I thought she was there. She's like looking out at the water and this shit's happening. It's like she's not even there, but it looks like she's watching it, but she's just having a vision of it.
So there's a whole thing where they're intercutting between like her having like playtime with her granddaughter.
Do you like ice cream, Doc?
Yeah. It really is. It's like The Shining. It's so fucking funny. So they're doing all this shit where like she's doing little play dates with Michael Caine and having fun and trying to like forget the past and whatever and pretend she's not. She's terrified for her son because she honestly believes that the shark. She's like saying it out loud. She's like, "I think the shark is after us," and they're like, "Ma, you sound like you're fucking nuts. Like, what are you talking about? That's bananas." And she's convinced of it, and now they're worried about her like mental state. Oh my God, is she freaking? What's happening to her? Is she having a nervous breakdown or whatever? And all of a sudden, this fucking great white shark attacks this boat that Michael's working on, where him and his partner. Yeah, and it's the worst. Like this is what I mean when I say like the worst the sharks ever look. The fucking thing comes out of the water. And all of a sudden, the thing can dance on water. It can just like stand up on its like fins on the water, and it's just chomping on the side of this boat. And these people have no reaction. Like Mario Van Peebles, which I got to talk about him later because I don't know if he's a high or a low in this movie.
Stop farting around.
Oh no, I don't know if he's a high or a low in this movie. I originally wrote him as a low, but I think he might be a high. I think he might actually be one of the only good things in the movie. The fucking shark is just chomping on the side of this boat.
When he gets eaten and then he comes back, I'm like, okay.
All right, yeah, we got to talk about that after. But so the fucking shark is chomping on the side of this boat, and no one's reacting to it. Everyone's just kind of like, "What the fuck is it doing?" And it's intercutting with Ellen Brody, who's like seeing it, like she's not even on. I
thought she actually was seeing it.
Yeah, you're watching.
I was like, wait a minute.
You're
no,
like,
she's
how the
just
fuck is she?
it.
It's so fucking goofy. Let's take a step back and go back to the whole concept of the shark vendetta. So again, trying to track with what's happening in the plot of this movie. Ellen Brody leaves essentially Cape Cod, right? She leaves Cape Cod and goes to the Bahamas. This exact same shark that killed Sean Brody follows her to the Bahamas. What I don't understand is, did the shark get the fucking travel itinerary?
He might have.
How the fuck
he
does
he
he
made a phone call and made some phone calls?
How fucking fast does this thing fucking swim?
With his seahorse telephone.
But now the entire plot of the movie becomes that this shark has shown up in the Bahamas and is attacking Michael Brody's boat. Now he's a believer. Okay, now Michael's a believer, and
then I saw those teeth. Now I'm a believer.
There you go.
Chopping my boat.
Now that she's willing to essentially say like, okay, I'm being over dramatic and I'm wrong about this. Now Michael is trying to hide the fact that oh shit, there really is a shark that's after us.
I know, and he's like flying the plane and it like swoops down to save her at just the right time. It's like, come on, this is so dumb.
So I wrote down as a low Mario Van Peebles cartoonish Jamaican accent, and I said I think I may have miscategorized this because this may actually be a high. It's one of those things where his accent, the cartoonishness of it tends to shift scene to scene. Like there's an early scene, like when you first meet him in the movie, he's like, "Oh, Bomber Cloud.
You stop farting around. Move your ass, man. Michael, you're tagging the damn things for Christ's sake.
Oh, man, don't do that. You move too slow. You got 2 speeds, slower and slower, and you're moving it damn slow, you're gonna grow roots.
But and then like there are parts in the movie where he doesn't, not that he doesn't sound Jamaican at all, but he's dialing it way back.
Save me from your ignorance, Michael. You know, the bottom line is we got 3 months left of work and no money left to support it.
It depends on the intensity of the scene, I think, is the intensity of his Jamaican accent, you know. But I think that might actually be a high because Mario Van Peebles is pretty great. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back and we'll kick up some more of what we got for this flick.
All right. See you soon.
I love you. Always have.
Come on, you can't believe that voodoo. Sharks don't commit murder. They don't pick out a person.
It picked out Sean. It killed your father.
Dad died from a heart attack.
He died from fear. The fear of it killed him.
Mom, listen to me. There's never been a great white where we live. Ever.
I don't know. Have we even scratched the surface of how bad this movie is?
I mean, I mentioned all my lows, so.
You don't have any other lows? There's nothing else.
I said them all.
What about, all right, what did I say? I said, hero, entire Shark Vendetta concept, horrific dialogue, the shark has never looked worse, Sean Brody death scene, sepia tone flashbacks, Ellen Brody Spidey sense, Mario Van Peebles cartoonish Jamaican accent. Okay, so I got two more lows, I guess. Poor forced romance between Ellen Brody and Michael Caine.
And it's like no real chemistry. They both seem asexual.
It's just pretty weird, and it's, I don't know. It's just.
I think we summed it up right there.
Is that all it takes to explain that? So it was actually kind of funny because Michael Caine, when he was shooting this movie, he was actually not able to accept his Oscar that he won for Hannah and Her Sisters. He was shooting this film.
Hey, Anna and her sisters.
Hannah and Her Sisters.
Hannah
and Her Sisters.
I don't know what that movie is.
There's a movie about a woman named Hannah, and she's got some sisters, and Michael Caine was in it. And he was supposed to, he had won his first Oscar for that movie, and he couldn't accept it because he was making this movie. And I've read interviews with him after the fact where they talked to him, and they're like, they reference that. And he's like, yeah, I've never actually seen Jaws the Revenge, but I've seen the house that it built, and it's very lovely. So he clearly was like cashing the paycheck. Check. He was paying for his groceries with this one.
Snapping necks, cashing checks.
That's all right. That's all right. And, he probably got some perks because of that, because he was probably the most highest, other than Ellen Brody, he was probably the most highest profile actor on this movie, which is why they could fucking sink his helicopter, and he goes into the water, and he comes out of the water, his fucking hair's wet, and his fucking clothes are bone dry at the end of the movie. And I bet it was because he was like, oh, listen, I'm an Oscar winner now, all right, and I'm not going to get my fucking clothes wet for the whole day, all right? You're just going to let me do what I need to do and not fucking let me make, I'm assuming here, I have no idea, but that's what I would.
You're probably right.
They're like, you can get my hair a little wet.
If I had to suppose, you're probably right.
But yeah, I'm dry for the day. Okay.
He really was boned. At first, I remember trying to play devil's advocate. I'm like, no, maybe he's just wearing one of those quick drying tops or whatever, like the fabric, and it's like he's fucking dry as a bone. Man.
Yeah, like this guy.
There's not an inch of him that has wetness on him.
This guy did not.
He just came out of the water.
Yeah, he did not climb out of the water after being attacked by a shark with a fucking downed helicopter.
Right.
The
undertow sucking him under.
That's ridiculous. And then the other thing that I wrote, and this is I think the banana boat scene is hilarious. So the banana boat scene is like the climax of the movie, and it's probably the funniest scene.
It almost reminds
movie.
me of the last scene in Friday the 13th, where it's like she's sleeping on the boat, and then all of a sudden Jason comes up from under the water. Dun, 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 dun.
But that was actually scary.
I know. But it's like. It's just like, it's kind of in the water.
No, but you know what it is? It's that it's all shot in slow motion, and all of the characters, like, they kind of like fall into the shark's mouth. Like that, like it doesn't feel like the characters are being eaten by the shark as much as they're like falling off of a surface and just landing in an open shark's mouth.
And he bites into the lady's leg. I know it's not right. She's like,
it's so, and they're trying.
And the little girl's like, it's just, it's. You can tell it's staged. You know, it doesn't feel like a real, like there's some movies like, okay, what about that movie Open Water, right? Like it's supposed to feel like this could really happen. This is what it would really be like. It's not
in Open Water,
goofy.
It did really happen.
Well, there you go. And that's a movie, it's not like the same as Jaws per se, but it's like the idea, those kinds of movies where it's like you can actually feel like this is what it would feel like, this is what it would look like, you can feel like that's what it would actually be like versus this, which is like, you can tell it's being staged.
Yeah.
It's just, of course, this fucking animatronic shark's coming up now. It's campy. It's just really campy.
When we get to the end of the movie, so Ellen Brody ends up stealing this boat Neptune's Folly.
I was gonna say the s'il vous plaît.
She ends up stealing this boat and running off into the middle of the ocean because she thinks that it will lure the shark out after her because it's got the Brody scent. It can sniff her armpits and understand that she's Brody's wife or whatever the fuck is going on.
Her pheromones.
So she gets on this boat. She goes all the way out there. It draws the shark in. They all go after her, and they all get out there. And now the shark is after her, and it's fucking attacking the boat. And the boat is sinking, and they decide that they're going to try and put this. They're going to try and get this. I don't know. This device into it that when it puts it in, it disrupts its receptors.
Right, and then ends up exploding.
So that every time they click this button,
it drives it crazy.
It goes, and it comes out of the ocean screaming. It's like roaring like a dinosaur. And then that's when Mario Van Peebles, you think, gets eaten, but they don't end up letting him get eaten. This thing is coming at the boat, and they end up stabbing it with the bow of the boat. And it just, and now the whole time as we're approaching, as like they're trying to raise this thing out of the water and aim the bow of the boat at it, it's intercutting with of course, the far superior original film with Brody when he's put the fucking tank in its mouth and he's trying to line up the shot to shoot the tank to blow him up. And it's intercutting with this, like it's Ellen Brody looking at the shark, and it's intercutting with Chief Brody's memories. It's like it's intercutting with flashbacks for scenes that she wasn't even in, which makes no sense at all.
I think that's more fan service.
I guess it's totally fan service, but at this point, I guess they have to give you something.
But it's also, like you said, it's a way to put him in the movie, even though he didn't want to be in the movie.
Right. It'd be like, hey, remember how awesome this was? Like, try and remember that with this garbage.
Let's pretend this is a reenactment, even though it's just scenes from the original movie because he didn't want to be in this movie.
And Jaws' little nephew jumps out of the water.
JJ, Jaws Jr.
Jaws Jr. the third. The fucking bow of his boat comes up and stabs this shark in the face, and the fucking shark explodes. I'm not sure why the shark explodes. It doesn't really make any sense that it explodes. The device that they put in his face has nothing to do with, it's not an explosive device.
Right. It's like, there's no reason that he should have blown up.
There's no reason he should have blown up. He just fucking blows up.
Isn't there a joke? I'm sorry, all these things seem like they could be Family Guy jokes. Isn't there a joke on Family Guy where it's like all these things are blowing up and it's like a horse and the horse blows up or whatever? It's like, remember that?
Yes.
It's like Stewie and Brian are running over something. It's like making fun of action movie montages, and then it's like everything keeps blowing up, and then it cuts to a horse and the horse blows up or something. It's just
we're also missing. There's this one great part where he just screams. He screams Jake in slow motion, but you almost can't. He goes.
I think it's He goes. That's what it is.
I remember we had to rewind it 3 times
because you can't tell what he's saying. He's clearly saying no and then goes to A. So he's like no. It's like, and somehow that's supposed to be Jake.
I remember we rewound it like 3 times, and then I was finally like, I'm just putting on the subtitles, and then I put on the subtitles like, oh, he's screaming Jake. But like, it took me a while to hear that. I'm like, I don't know that. I
didn't hear the J at any point. I heard.
He's like, it's one of the worst slow mo screams of all time.
Speaking of melodrama,
it's pretty bad. So that's all I've got. That's, I mean,
I guess it's another low might be like the scene where, the granddaughter character is flipping the pen, and the Michael character is flipping the pen, and it's like the first movie where Sean Brody is looking at Senior Brody flipping his pen and he's copying him. It's like, isn't it the whole thing? Remember?
Yeah, they do a whole thing where they're trying to rip from all the best scenes of the original movie. And there's a whole scene in this movie where Michael Brody, when he's all upset, he's sitting at the table and he's doing things, and his daughter is copying him. So like what he does with his hands, what he does with his face, and that's all from the original movie after the Kittner boy is killed. And Chief Brody is sitting at the table, and his son is watching him, and he's like,
but the son is supposed to be Sean, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Sean. No,
is it Michael?
Or is it Michael? I think
Michael's the younger one, right?
No, Michael's the older one. I think it's supposed to be Sean.
Is the younger one.
I think it's supposed to be Sean. But there's a whole scene, and it's a great scene in the original movie where he's sitting at the table and he's all upset because of what just happened with the Kittner boy, and then the mother yelling at him and blaming him, and he's sitting at the table and he's all stressed out, and his son is mimicking everything. So when he's doing with his fingers, and then he notices it, and as he notices it, he's purposefully starting to do different things to see if his son will copy him. And the way that scene ends is he leans in and he goes, "Give us a kiss." And the son goes, why? And he goes, because I need it.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives him a kiss. And like Ellen Brody is standing off camera watching the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they repeat literally the exact same scene in this, where it's just Michael Brody with his daughter and he's all stressed out and she's doing the same thing. And then not only like do they have to cut away to the flashbacks of that, they go through the whole thing where they're showing you the flashbacks. Like, remember when this happened in the better movie?
Spoon feeding, as you would say.
They go through that whole thing. After it's done, she literally is like in the scene talking about it. Like, I was watching you and I remember when that happened with your father and you. And it's like, okay, do you have to fucking tell us? We just saw it. We know what they're doing.
As it goes down too.
Oh, I fucking hate this movie. The more I talk about it, the more I hate it. But anyway, so those are all the lows I got. I would love to hear if you've got highs to bring this thing up.
You don't have any highs? Well, you said them all.
So I got 3 highs. I said the first one, which is Michael Caine playing a character named Hoagie. Perfect. I just wrote down as one high Agent Sanseverino, because the woman who plays
I wrote that too.
The woman who plays Michael's wife is Agent Sanseverino from Sopranos.
The Angry Welder, yeah.
And then I wrote as a third high, mercifully only 90 minutes, though it feels a lot longer.
It does feel longer. I put as the first high that, in my opinion, I thought the movie had balls by killing off the son character in the first 10 minutes. I know the movie's not perfect and it's cheesy and it's not trying to be perfect. Maybe it thought it was. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it's trying to be. But I thought it had balls killing off the son the way it did. Like, because honestly, for me going into it, I didn't see the second or third Jaws movie. And for me going into it, I expected the son character that they're setting up in the first few minutes. Oh, the great tomato thief. Your father was the great tomato thief. And everything's so fucking cookie cutter and perfect. I'm expecting him to hang on to the very end if he doesn't make it till the end. You know what I mean? Like, I'm expecting him to make it a lot farther in the story than the first 10 minutes.
But they kill one because they have another. They wouldn't kill him if there was only one.
Yeah, well, I guess I didn't really think about that they had another. It was, to me, I thought it was like a gutsy thing to do. But I did like the scene, because I'm into European royal history, but I like the scene where she's playing with the granddaughter in the Bahamas and they're building sandcastles and stuff, and she's building a little moat, and she's like, let's pretend that, you're Princess Diana and this is Buckingham Palace. Yeah, no, let's pretend this is Buckingham Palace and you'll be Princess Di, is what she said. I was like, oh, that's cute, and that was before she actually died.
Yeah, it's true.
But Princess Di died in 1996.
97, so it was like 10 years later.
Yeah. I do like the panty fling, the scene with Sanseverino's flinging her panty at the husband. I like that. I talked about the little girl flipping the pen. I said Michael Caine is awesome. And then I already said the line, like, where Ellen is flying up in the airplane with Michael Caine and he's trying to do some kind of trick or something that's risky, and she goes, you really think you can do that? He goes, of course not. What kind of pilot do you think I am? I liked that line. I thought it was funny. But
yeah,
those were my highs.
Wow. Thin. There's not a lot to like. I don't think there's a lot to like in this movie. I mean, other than ironically like. Right. You can ironically like the fact that this movie is so fucking stupid.
Well, it's kind of like Wicker Man, like, or even more Wicker Man than Battlefield Earth, because, but Wicker Man's not a perfect movie. You can't take everything seriously, but there's plenty of things about it. Like, it's fucking Nicolas Cage. Like, how can you not love him? Like, I mean, it's hilarious. Or the Vampire's Kiss. Oh my God, you have to do one on Vampire's Kiss. God. That was fucking incredible. There you go, right there. Like, I can think of a million things to put as highs, and not highs because they're genuinely good, but highs because it's like, this is so campy. It's awesome. It's like, it's playing on nostalgia of, I guess, I don't know, 80s kids and people that grew up watching these kinds of shitty movies that, like, to us, it's like, that's awesome. It's not awesome, but it's awesome because it's not awesome. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the biggest thing about this movie is that if you, it's like any other, it's like most of the movies I think that we're going to cover on this podcast, is that, they're notoriously bad. Sometimes they're notoriously bad just for being notoriously bad, but sometimes they're notoriously bad because they're so silly, and if you watch it on that level, you're enjoying the fact that it's so fucking stupid. I think that this movie, the biggest thing that I've got against the Jaws movies really is that now we live in a world of these crazy franchises that it's great when things can get better. I haven't seen all the Avengers movies, but people would obviously argue that the Avengers movies kind of get better as they go. And that's kind of what
one example you probably would make is the Terminator movies, right? Or no, the Terminator. Well, you like Terminator 2.
Yeah, Terminator 2 is better than Terminator.
Kind of shitty,
but again, but that's part of the thing is that let me take it a step back. I think that a franchise in a weird way is elevated when it's done almost in a television show setting. So like I would look at something like Breaking Bad, and I would say Breaking Bad got better every season. The stakes got a little higher and the story got a little deeper. You know, Sopranos is another example.
But in a movie.
But yeah, and that's the thing is that if you can do that, if you can elevate the storytelling, then it's worth continuing the story. And I think that sometimes what happens is they're not interested in elevating the story or continuing the story or doing something that makes sense within the context of telling a bigger or better story. It just becomes about how much more fucking money can we get out of this thing? And Jaws is a perfect example of that, of like we made a great classic film that everyone loved and then we continued to make a worse
I think that's what a lot of the
sequel.
producers and people behind the scenes of movies / TV shows, the difference in their way of thinking. I mean, movies, blockbusters, you're thinking about how are we going to make money in the box office? How are we going to put butts in seats? How are we going to be the front runner, the number one? It's not about how are we going to take the previous story and make it, you know, make it even great. I mean, some movies do that, but it's like, it's not about the integrity of it. Like maybe a TV show where it's, unless you're having a TV show where you've got the same characters and they're all played by different actors in every season and you're like, what?
Yeah.
It's not the same format.
But it stops, it hits, like, let me put it to you this way. The reason there's not a Jaws 5 is that Jaws 4 didn't make as much money as it should have.
Right.
If Jaws 4 had been a financial success, it doesn't matter how stupid it is. They would make another one. And that was where I think like kind of the cynicism of filmmaking is told in the greatest blockbuster of all time. We're starting with the first blockbuster and we're seeing the de-evolution of what happened to it, and it hit the wall. It's more of an interesting piece of history in a weird way to look at it and say this is what films can turn into when it comes to franchises, is that they almost have to hit rock bottom, you know. And I'm surprised they haven't tried to reboot Jaws. And in a weird way that, you know, you could look at a lot of shark movies. I know.
Right. That have totally aped it.
Yeah, that have
Deep
tried
Blue
to.
Sea or
exactly.
Deepest, bluest. My head is like sharks.
We did this in the last one.
Did we? Well, we got to do it again now.
All right, so that was Jaws 4, The Revenge. Let's do the coin toss. And it's heads.
I can't remember what the high and low is going to be.
So, apropos to everything that's happening in the world today, we're going to do a film that happens to be a great virus film, but also
12 Monkeys.
A great time traveling film, which is Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys.
The music's weird and it's like
Terry Gilliam's.
It's got that weird like accordion thing going on.
Terry Gilliam's a really weird director. But thanks for listening to this episode of Movie HighLow. We'll check in with you next week with 12 Monkeys. We are living in uncertain times. Everything sucks right
Absolutely.
now. And just do your best to look out for yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. Take care of the people you love.
Take care.
Adios.